Sunday evening, no 49ers game. That means we all had a chance to just chill. I had a chance to watch all the games, NFL Red Zone, all that fun stuff. Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders just lost to the Steelers, the team that the 49ers dominated in week one. And I do have to say that the further this goes along, and we now have 3 weeks of football under our belts, the further it goes along, the more impressive the 49ers look. That's the overarching takeaway. There should be some appreciation for what the 49ers have accomplished so far, what it looks like they're going to on their way to accomplish this year. I think they're definitely on the inside track to win the NFC West. It is early, but I think that clearly you see the 49ers, you see the star power, you see the cohesion, you know the history of this team, a lot of success over the past several seasons. You can confidently say that they're on the right track. And then you knock on wood and hope that they stay healthy, because nobody likes to see injuries anywhere in football. And if that does happen for the 49ers, they've got a shot. Relative to what we're seeing from a lot of the league right now, the 49ers are playing much more balanced football. Anyway, this is going to be a nice little 49ers Q&A Sunday night. See, we have a huge crowd already, which is cool. I'm sure a lot of people were just watching Sunday Night Football. That's what I was doing. Wanted to let that game finish before we got going here. This is going to be a little bit more casual. We're just going to go through where the 49ers stand in terms of the rest of the NFL. Mike sent me the team tiers. I think that's going to be a good one to look at right now. I might even be tweeting a little bit over the course of the show. Let me download the team tiers and get them up on the page right now. Here we go. We're going to find them in my images, in a long pile of images. Oh my gosh. Sometimes when you download too much stuff, it creates a folder that's like 500 images long, all these team tiers and other football graphics that we use for the show. But we got it ready right now. Perfect. So this one's going to go up. The team tiers have obviously changed with the Dallas Cowboys losing. Here we have it. Stretch this out across the full screen. As you can see, look at the Dolphins. So those of you who are new to team tiers, this is expected points added per play. So this is going to be offensive and defensive efficiency on an XY axis. Offense is the X axis. So that's horizontal. You want to be further to the right. Defense is the Y axis. Vertical, you want to be further up. So up and to the right is better. The diagonal lines represent the tiers. The Dolphins, who just put up 70 points today against the Denver Broncos, you can see their offense. It's as extreme as it possibly can be to the right. Meanwhile, the Broncos, who gave up the 70 points, their defense is down here, as extreme as it can possibly be down along the Y-axis. The 49ers are a tier one team, along with the Buffalo Bills, who had a commanding 37-3 win over the Commanders today. The Dolphins are a tier one team, even though their defense is about average. Their offense has just been that good. So it's the 49ers, the Bills, and Buffalo as tier one teams. Dallas lost today to Arizona. That knocked them out of tier one. They're tier two. Kansas City is on tier three, knocking on the door of tier two. Obviously, the sample isn't huge yet. It's that loss to the Lions, who seem to be a mediocre team so far. But I think the Lions have something to them this year. They did lose to the Seahawks in week 2, but that loss to the Lions still holding Kansas City back. I'm going to tweet team tiers right now, because this is obviously something that we've got to get up there. So follow me, Lombardi himself. Get your questions in, and I will get to them as soon as I possibly can. I just have to send this out on Twitter. Maybe I share the screen for Twitter too. Maybe not. Maybe I don't want you guys looking at that. 49ers have risen to tier 1, while the Cowboys have dropped to tier 2. Boom. It is up. Let the comments roll in. All right, questions about the 49ers and where they are on that team tier chart. This is pretty funny. Team tiers, more like team tiers. Tears for the Cowboys. Why don't we start talking about that? Dallas, last week, if you went to this chart after week 2, Dallas was up here. I mean, they were in a stratosphere of their own because they had the 40-0 win over the Giants under their belts. Yeah, that was in week 1. Then Dallas won again in week 2. Now they have a loss. They have a loss to an Arizona team who actually grades out decently well. I think the Cardinals, in a lot of ways, are surprising people. They jumped out to the big lead against the Giants before blowing it, and they were competitive in week 1. So maybe the Cardinals aren't going to be a bottom barrel team. I don't think they're going to be a good team this year, but they seem to be playing hard. They seem to have some interesting depth. They're obviously probably on the right track in terms of talent acquisition since they're raiding the 49ers practice squad. The 3 players poached already from the 49ers for the Arizona Cardinals. But anyway, they beat Dallas by 2 possessions today. Dallas drops down, so it's more like team tiers for the Cowboys. I like that. The Dolphins making history. And yes, you could see history on the chart here. Way over here. That's the Dolphins offense. It's the 49ers have the second best offense in football on EPA per play. But the Dolphins are way out here. I mean, I'm going to find the quarterback rankings here. Let's take a look to see where the quarterbacks are. I don't know if Summer Sports updates this quickly, but I know that Ben Baldwin's website does. I know that the QB rankings are going to be on here, so I could share these. I'm just going to check very briefly before I put it up on the screen to see if these are the updated numbers for quarterbacks. So Garoppolo's numbers aren't updated yet, and I think Jimmy's going to drop down under Purdy and EPA per play because Garoppolo didn't have the most efficient performance tonight. But Brock Purdy is indeed number 2 in EPA per play. Let me get the quarterback team tiers and all that up on the screen for you in just a second. All right, here you go. These are NFL quarterbacks. Dolphins and Tua indeed making history. Okay, there's Tua number 1, but look at Purdy number 2. This is sorted by EPA per play. Now, Purdy, as you could see on the dot, this is EPA. This is the vertical axis. So you want to be higher for more efficiency. Better accuracy is further to the right. So Brock Purdy is really good on the efficiency. The only dot that's higher than his is Tua Tagovailoa's. He's above average on the accuracy spectrum. Not quite as good as a group of other guys over here, but the 49ers love where Brock Purdy is at right now. So this is also tweetable. I'm also going to take this and update the masses here on Saturday night. Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa, he who led the offense to score 70 points today, 1-2 in EPA per play after week 3. All right, got this up here. And we're going to fire this one away. So anyway, your questions are welcome now. I'm going to hop in there in just a second to start answering them. Season EPA play rankings right now. 1, Tua, 2, Purdy. Post. We know that Brock Purdy's been playing really well, and we know that Tua and those Dolphins have been playing historical football. Luke is asking, how likely is 17-0 barring any huge injuries? Because honestly, it seems possible. Well, you're asking how likely it is. And the problem is, even if the 49ers are favored every single week of this journey, the way that probability works is that it compounds, right? So say the 49ers have a 85% chance to win against the Cardinals. That means they still have a 15% chance to lose. I mean, maybe higher than that, than 85%. But I'm just saying it's small, but you take that percentage, you multiply it by the next week's percentage to lose, you multiply it by the next week's percentage to lose. To go 17-0, you're going to have to win 14 more of these in a row without a single loss. So the probability of going undefeated lessens significantly over time because you still have just that tiny margin for error. So I don't know if 17-0 is unlikely, but I think that the most likely mathematical models probably have the 49ers at 15-2, 14-3, based on how they've looked so far. injuries can always throw a wrench in all of that. Mark is looking forward to Darrell Luter Jr.'s return. That's a good one. Darrell Luter, the rookie out of South Alabama, defensive back, I think he's been healthy for a while, but the 49ers have him on the NFI pup list, whichever one it is. It's the list for rookies who were injured before training camp started, and they can't take him off of that list until week 5 at the soonest. He's got to be on NFI for at least 4 weeks. So we're looking at one more week without Darrell Luter, who can then provide reinforcements to the 49ers defensive back room. Why did they release and re-sign Anthony Brown? What does the Jason Verrett workout mean? Well, the Jason Verrett workout means what you think it does. They're seeing what kind of shape Jason Verrett is in as he recovers and rehabs and tries to get back from last season's injury. Obviously, a familiar face. So probably just to check in with Jason Verrett. Maybe they check in with him again in a month or two. They didn't sign him immediately after the workout, so that makes me think that they're still going to give that a little bit more time. As far as Anthony Brown goes, I can open up the 49ers depth chart here for you so I can explain some of that roster move. So Anthony Brown is the veteran cornerback who's now on the 53-man roster, who the 49ers signed last week. They poached him off of the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad. They then cut Anthony Brown right before the game on Thursday night against the Giants, and they re-signed Anthony Brown the next day. They needed an extra 53-man roster spot for Trey Swilling, who currently isn't on the team, but there is an empty practice squad spot. So Swilling might be re-signed to the practice squad tomorrow before practice. But they essentially decided that Anthony Brown, who's coming off a torn Achilles, who they just rated from Pittsburgh's practice squad, isn't game ready yet, or at least wasn't as game ready as Trey Swilling. So they needed Swilling in uniform, and they needed that 53-man roster spot for Trey Swilling. So they flexed Trey Swilling up to the 53 to make room. They cut Anthony Brown, but they told Anthony, hey, just wait a day and we'll re-sign you. And that's exactly what they did. Now, to make room for Anthony Brown, they cut Trey Swilling after the game. I'm guessing that Trey is going to be on their practice squad. He doesn't have to be on their practice squad right now, but they have a bonus practice tomorrow, the 49ers do. And with that being the case, they'll want to make sure that that practice squad is full of 16 players. Right now, there's only 15. Hope that answers your question. With all the terrible QB play in the league, I can't believe most people still want to put Brock around 15th or 16th. Yeah. And you know what? All that stuff doesn't really matter. It's at the end of the day, Brock Purdy is playing sensationally efficient football, evidenced by this. Literally ranked second in EPA per play. Like I said, Jimmy's probably going to be dropping a little bit after today's game. The Raiders just lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who Purdy and the 49ers beat. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa is head and shoulders above everybody else. I would expect the Dolphins to cool off a little bit. I mean, the Dolphins, it's interesting. You have to respect what they're doing and making NFL history. But in the case of Miami, we've seen stories like this in the past. Red hot offense early in the season. How is that going to last as the season progresses, as adjustments are made, as the weather gets worse? Playoff football, obviously, I think favors some of the rough and tough teams a little bit more than the track star teams. And, you know, obviously, playoff football also favors balanced teams. That's why I love the team tier chart. The team tier chart shows us balance in a nice, visually simple way, right? You want to be further to the right and you want to be further up. The 49ers are in a good spot. They're showing good offensive and defensive balance. So are the Bills. So are the Cowboys, although the Cowboys didn't have a great game today. You know, one team right here that's really interesting to me are the Cleveland Browns, who are showing the best defense in the league right now. So the top defense, most efficient defense through 3 weeks is Cleveland. The offense is still below average, although Deshaun Watson played his best game in a Cleveland Browns uniform today. The 49ers have to head there in mid-October. And because the Browns offense is lagged behind, they're a third-tier team right now. I think if they keep this up, though, and the offense shifts over to the right, they might be a tier 2 team by the time the 49ers play them. And tier 1 against tier 2 on the road is no joke. So it's time to appreciate what the 49ers are doing. If you want to see where the Dolphins are in terms of balance, they don't have a lot of balance right now. The problem is that, you could pour a good 70 points on Denver, but you're not going to be pouring 70 points on Buffalo. You're not going to be pouring 70 points on the 49ers. And those are teams that you would have to beat on your way to a title in all likelihood, right? So the tier one teams are going to be playing some defense. Miami right now is an outlier offensively, but we'll see if they can raise the level of their defensive play to be true contenders, because we have seen hot offensive starts before. It's really, really important, though, to be balanced if you want to win a Super Bowl. I did too. Go for Broke said he paid close attention to the Dallas-Arizona game, the 49ers' next two opponents. I noticed that Arizona was really able to run the football. Why don't we take a look at the box score? I think that's the good thing to look at. I am going to open up Dallas, Arizona in the box score, because it is the Cardinals next week, and then it is the Dallas Cowboys the week after that. So here we go. Box score for Cowboys, Cardinals. Dak today, that last interception wasn't impressive at all, trying to will the Cowboys back, throw it into triple coverage. Pollard was able to run 23 for 122, but what was more significant to me was how well James Conner and several Arizona ball carriers were able to run, including their quarterback, Joshua Dobbs. It seemed that from the snap, Dallas was a little unprepared for Dobbs to run the football. Had that 44-yard run early. James Conner averaged 7 yards a carry. Look at the efficiency today from Joshua Dobbs against this vaunted Dallas defense. I mean, they played a run-heavy game. He only threw 21 times, and he was 17 of 21. Protected the football, 120 rating. Stuff that you just love to see if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan. I know Micah Parsons finally got a sack a little bit later on, but we look at the Dallas defensive sheet. One for Parsons, one for DeMarcus Lawrence, 2 sacks, and those evened out. 2 sacks for the Arizona Cardinals. Mostly, you look at the ability to run against the Cowboys. The Cardinals' ability to run against the Cowboys. 222 rushing yards, 30 carries, 7.4 carry. That allowed them to control the flow of this game. They got out ahead. They're able to run. They're able to diffuse the Dallas pass rush, which had given its previous opponents such trouble. And Joshua Dobbs went 17 of 21 for 189 yards. I will say this. I know that Kyle Shanahan's going to review the film against the Cowboys, who all offseason were talking about the need to get stiffer against the run. And he's going to say, we can run on these guys. If the Arizona Cardinals can run on Dallas, we can too. And I think the 49ers thought that even before today, because to me, it seems that Dallas is very built with their edge rushers, their team speed. They're very built to be the kind of team that gets ahead and then can just slam the door shut on you, because they're corners too. I mean, Trayvon Diggs especially, I know he's hurt now for the season, but their corners take chances. They take risks. Their rushers take risks. So this is a team that tries to be ferocious around the edge, force quarterbacks into bad throws, and tries to gamble for interceptions. And teams like that always, I think, do better when they're playing on their toes, when they're ahead in the football game. It's a lot tougher for a team like Dallas when it's behind or it's tied and the other team can be running the football all game. And that could keep the pass rushers on their heels. And by extension, defensive backs who take a lot of chances, they're going to be on their heels as well. So I thought for the first time today, we saw Dallas on its heels. That's why I said they're front runners. Dallas loves when everything's going well. Dallas is nowhere near as good when they have to play from behind, because that defense is not the dominant unit that it can be when it can pin its ears back, right? So the 49ers have beaten the Cowboys 2 straight seasons in the postseason because they've controlled tempo, kind of like the Arizona Cardinals controlled tempo against the Cowboys today. 49ers have either taken early leads or just not allow Dallas to pin its ears back and torment them with the pass rush and with the gambles in coverage. So the formula to beat the Cowboys is there. The Cardinals executed it today, and the 49ers have executed it over the past 2 weeks. Christopher Schwab is going to the game. He has tickets on the away side. God help him, he says. Do I see the 49ers scoring 30 on Dallas? To me, it just depends on how the flow of the game goes at the start. If it turns into a little bit more of a tractor pull at the start and the 49ers aren't able to get a couple scripted or at least one scripted touchdown at the start of the game, probably not. But if they're able to punch in 10 relatively quickly before Dallas is able to make its defensive adjustments, I think 30 is within reach. Dawn is predicting 49ers 30, Cardinals 13. I mean, that's one thing coming out of today. The 49ers definitely will not take the Cardinals lightly. There was a chance that they would look at it as that they wouldn't look at it seriously enough, I'll put it that way, and we would be looking at it as a trap game, right? The team wouldn't see the trap, but everybody on the outside would be like, hey, watch out. It's not going to be a trap game anymore. Because even though you're looking forward to Dallas, Dallas is no longer undefeated. And Arizona just beat Dallas. So you better focus on the team that beat the Cowboys if you're playing them first rather than the Cowboys. So it's Arizona first, then the Cowboys after that. Who's been a more pleasant surprise this season, Kinlaw or McKivitz? I'm not surprised by either, to be honest. I think that Kinlaw has been so good that there's been, you could say, okay, there's surprise that he's got 10 pressures because that's a lot of pressures through 3 games. But we knew that he was healthy. We knew he had stacked days throughout the entire offseason for the first time in his NFL career. He had never been healthy for an actual NFL offseason before. Because in 2020, when Kinlaw was coming out of college, that was the COVID year. So they didn't have an offseason, right? So there was a lot of optimism coming from the 49ers that Kinlaw was finally healthy and ready to go. So I think they saw him playing well. Yeah, yes. They did. I don't know if they saw this level, but that was all great. With McKivitz, well, they had enough belief in him to really cement him as the starter fairly early on, right? There was no camp competition for Colton McKivitz. And I don't think it's time to take a victory lap on Colton McKivitz yet. I mean, he had delivered a clean sheet in this past game against the Giants. But a lot of tackle success in the league right now is just directly correlated to the star caliber of edge rusher that they're facing. So he didn't look good against TJ Watt in week 1. But he started looking a lot better in week 2. Aaron Donald didn't line up on the outside all that much, a few times against McKivitz. And then he looked really good in week 3. But I would say that the Giants defense, their strength is up the middle. Their strength isn't at edge rusher. So McKivitz was not nearly as tested against the Giants. I'm going to revisit this over time. Right now, there are 54 qualifying edge rushers. 54 qualifying offensive tackles. Pass block grade, PFF, number 1 is Trent Williams. Number 53 of 54 entering this weekend is Mike McGlinchey, who's now with the Denver Broncos. And number 33 of 54, so right in the middle right there, Colton McKivitz. So in the small sample of 3 games, McKivitz has been mediocre. I think the 49ers would love for him to trend a little bit above average, but they want him to be better than Mike McGlinchey in that pass protection. And so far, he has been better. That said, Mike McGlinchey has had to deal with what Max Crosby was the pass rusher he dealt with in week 1. So Mike McGlinchey's had a little bit of a tough assignment of it early on, kind of like Colton McKivitz did in week 1 too. So we just want the sample size to grow larger. Go for broke. I think people are too down on Spencer Burford. If he was that bad, the 49ers would have benched him already. Needed to pay attention to the things he does right as well. That's what I try to do. He is reaching the second level with tremendous efficiency. I mean, he's athletic, right? And you have to look at that. I think that the pass protection has been the biggest issue for Spencer Burford. We came out of the Pittsburgh game talking about how well the 49ers were run blocking, getting a hat on a hat. We talked about the Christian McCaffrey 65-yard touchdown run. Burford made one of the more difficult blocks on that play. Put a hat on a linebacker 4 to 5 yards off the line of scrimmage and did it within a second or two. So these are difficult reach blocks. Burford has been executing those. I understand the troubles in pass protection. He has been by far the worst pass blocking offensive lineman for the 49ers, worse than Colton McKivitz. The problem is those two are lined up in conjunction with each other on the right side. So there's going to be some interplay there, right? You've got to, if you're the right tackle, you're going to feed off the right guard. If you're the right guard, you're going to feed off the right tackle. So the 49ers need Burford to get better in the pass pro regard because teams are going to try to pick on them at that right side soft spot. But that being said, if you're just looking at PFF grade and they have a pretty formulaic way of looking at things, sometimes you can miss the fact that the 49ers actually are zagging while other teams are zigging. Just like the 49ers ask their receivers to block differently than other teams or just block at all. A lot of teams don't ask their receivers to block. The 49ers ask different stuff out of their offensive linemen that may not be fully quantifiable through the way that PFF is looking at things. And I love PFF. I think it's a great tool, but we have to view everything with a grain of salt. And if Burford were completely unplayable, the 49ers would not have 30 points in each of their first 3 games. I think you're spot on with this take. Bosa is not underperforming. No, Bosa is the second or third highest ranked defensive player in all football, according to PFF. Bosa's been Bosa. Way too many people fixate on the sacks. And if you're getting triple teamed, you're not going to get as many sacks. But you're having a bigger impact on the game than if you get single teamed, then you get a bunch of sacks. Like Drake Jackson. It's been doing great, right? First week was awesome. 3, but he was never doubled when he notched those 3 sacks against Pittsburgh. In fact, 2 of those you directly could credit to Eric Armstead for the blockers that he was occupying. Remember the night of the Pittsburgh game, we had Dennis Jackson, Drake's dad, come on the show, and he told us that he spoke to Gus Armstead, who was Eric Armstead's dad, and he told Gus, hey, thank you. Thanks to your son for the 2 sacks that he opened up for my son. So Bosa's opening up sack opportunities for everybody. Bosa's stopping the run. It's not all about sacks. He's got 1 through 3 games, not bad. They'll come in bunches. They always do, especially when you have a defensive line where teams are going to have to start paying more attention to Javon Hargrave, to Kinlaw, maybe to Drake Jackson in certain situations, to Armstead. Well, that's when it opens up for Bosa. But Bosa's playing just as well. Now, I think there might have been a little bit of conditioning catch-up for Nick Bosa? Absolutely. He said that there had to be. So maybe the snap load has been a little bit lower, especially through the first 2 games than it would have otherwise been. But over the snaps that he has played, he's graded out as a top 3 defensive player. And I don't think that's surprising to anybody because Bosa is really, really damn good. Anthony Garcia says the Cowboys couldn't stop the run. He thinks the 49ers will run it down their throats. Carlos says drafting Banks is looking really good. He's playing like a future 10-year vet. I mean, yeah, Aaron is looking absolutely awesome. You look at the pressures allowed by guards. He had given up a clean sheet through the first 2 weeks. Now, the interior line, if there's something for the 49ers to fix, and I think the Giants game was great for this, the interior line gave up a lot of pressure in that game. The tackles, McKivitz and Williams, clean sheets against all those blitzes from the New York Giants. 80 is an NFL record blitz rate, 85% of the time. The interior line gave up at least 3 pressures apiece for everybody. I think it was 4 for Burford. I think it was 3 for Brendel. I could go back and look, but it was 3 for Aaron Banks. So he had been a clean sheet through 2 games and then gave up 3 pressures. That's something to build off of. Teams are going to try to light the 49ers up with blitzes if they feel that they can win with those blitzes. Now, Brock Purdy doing as well as he did against those blitzes might help dissuade some teams, but I still think that there is a supposition that the 49ers might be a little creaky up the middle as far as their pass protection goes. So the 49ers have to put out reputation film week after week. The more games that Aaron Banks delivers that were like week 1 and week 2 when he was just stonewalling everyone no matter what, the more times teams will think twice about blitzing on the inside. They'll say, not really worth it. Big number 65 is taking care of us. The more that Jake Brendel plays like he did throughout the majority of last season when he was the number 4 ranked pass protector out of all centers in the NFL, less teams will try to test the 49ers interior. That leaves Burford. That's why Burford is such a hinge point for the 49ers on the right side, because Spencer Burford has been the worst pass protector so far for the 49ers. I agree with you, man. You're asking why isn't it considered a sack when the offense is going for the 2-point conversion? Nick Bosa has lost sacks on this like multiple times, but it doesn't count. And I think it absolutely should count. It's a dumb rule. The sack happens in the game. The sack prevents points. Why that isn't tallied statistically? It means our statistics are incomplete. I know that touchdown, like if you score a throw a touchdown pass in a 2-point conversion, so it's a conversion, a converted conversion, it doesn't count as a TD pass. It doesn't count as a completion. Doesn't count as an attempt. I'm a firm believer that whatever happens during conversions should count on the stat sheet. Because if a kicker kicks it on the conversion, counts on his stat sheet, why not for anybody else? I feel that you have an incomplete stat log if you don't count what happens on conversions, but that's just the way that it is. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Maybe I'll put some of these up on the screen. How should the 49ers approach Josh Dobbs? Well, based on what I saw today, they need to be ready for him to run. 44 yards around the edge. First drive for the Cardinals set a tone in this game. Now, the 49ers did a really good job last week of being ready for Daniel Jones to run. We talked about the fact he had 22 carries entering the game. We talked a lot about zone read. We thought the Giants would press the issue against the 49ers. They didn't. That speaks to the 49ers alignments, their discipline, their preparation. They basically took a running quarterback out of his game. I don't think Joshua Dobbs is as much of a running quarterback as Daniel Jones, but he showed us that he can do it against the Cowboys. So the 49ers have to be ready for that. Then the plays the Hollywood Brown. I want to look at that. Yeah, Hollywood Brown had 5 catches for 61 yards. Mike Wilson, that Mike Wilson out of Stanford, big target, 2 catches for 86 yards. But I think especially Brown might be a tougher 49ers cover. Might want to play Deommodore Lenoir in the slot because Hollywood Brown is going to be in the slot for the Cardinals. And, teams have a tough time running against the 49ers. It'll be a nice comparison. Dallas gave up 98 yards on 14 carries to James Conner. What will the 49ers give up? This ain't 2021 anymore, right? When Drake Kirkpatrick was getting absolutely leveled by Eno Benjamin and James Conner was running into the end zone for the Arizona Cardinals. This is 2023 now, and the 49ers are rigid against the run. Michael Powers, what's up, man? Given the complexity of the playbook, too late to upgrade swing tackle? No, I don't think the complexity of the playbook has anything to do with it. I think the fact that good tackles aren't growing on trees available for the picking has more to do with it. Again, the evolution of edge rushers, the proliferation of these athletic monsters at edge rusher has outpaced the development of tackles. There are offensive line problems across the entire NFL. Every team would die to improve its tackle situation, especially its second tackle position. That means that guys aren't just waiting on the street to get signed. Guys aren't on the trade block right now either because we're nowhere near the trade deadline. So it's not a playbook thing. It's just an availability thing as far as good tackles go. You want them to put their money into a free agent edge rusher? Well, that wouldn't be until next offseason, right? Because nobody's a free agent right now, especially nobody that is worth signing. So you might be able to trade for somebody if a team decides to check out before the deadline. That's why everybody's looking at Carolina because they were sellers last year of Christian McCaffrey. Will they be sellers of Brian Burns? I don't know. You can't have too many good edge rushers. It's just hard to be able to get your hands on them because of obvious market issues in the NFL. Cisco 1946 says, don't underestimate Arizona. They have a tough running game. Their O-line looks solid, but no defense, so the Niners should take care of business. Yeah, I'm wondering what the 49ers will be favored by next week. I wonder if that number is out. I can't check my score app because my phone is my camera right now. The 49ers can afford Burns, yes, especially in the short term, but he has to be available for them to afford him, and he's currently not available. I think there's never the question here is Was there a real sense of worry about Moody? I think there's a sense of concern about every player in the NFL, especially a rookie, how they're going to adjust to the bright lights. And you do your very best in the pre-draft evaluation process to determine if you think a player will be able to handle it. It doesn't matter what position they're at. It could be a defensive line, they could be a quarterback, they can be kicker. On some level, you're always projecting. So I do think that it might have made the 49ers squirm a bit when Jake Moody missed his first 2 kicks in game action at the NFL level. You could be like, oh, maybe psychologically something's going on here. But they did enough in their research. They ran him through this crazy fire drill. That was special teams coordinator Brian Schneider prior to the draft. They did so much to really have confidence in Moody beyond one bad game. If they were going to start sweating bullets and having nightmares after one bad preseason game where Josh McDaniels tried to ice Jake Moody twice, well, then they should have never made the pick in the first place, right? So you make that pick so you stay the course for the requisite amount of time to let Jake Moody get used to this level. And it's a good thing they did that, right? It's a good thing they didn't freak out like fans on the internet were trying to freak out. Sign Robbie Gould. It's a good thing the 49ers stayed the course because Jake Moody has now started his NFL career better than Justin Tucker started his NFL career. He's become the first kicker in NFL history to make 3 field goals and 3 extra points in each of his first 3 games. Games in which the 49ers have scored 30 points each. 3 is a big number as the 49ers are 3-0. We'll have a little bit more word on Brandon Ayuk's recovery tomorrow. A little bonus practice for the 49ers. And then the week of practice for the Arizona Cardinals begins on Wednesday. Hope your day was good as well. Thank you. Yeah, the front office does look really smart with Moody. You've gotten a better kickoff guy than Robbie Gould. You've gotten a younger, fresher leg than Robbie Gould's leg, and you've gotten it at probably a quarter or a fifth of the price at a time when the 49ers are really straining hard to become and remain cap sustainable, salary cap sustainable. The switch to a rookie kicker this year was a big deal. They didn't want to go with Robbie Gould over 40 years old for a bigger salary cap hit. Every dollar counts if they're trying to make this sustainable over the long term. 49ers are favored by 14 against the Cardinals. I think the Cowboys were favored by 12 or 13, right? 49ers at home and the Cowboys were on the road. So I think that Dallas's value definitely went down with the upset loss today to Arizona. Gold Rush says, I think we're a cornerback away from being an all-time historic defensive team. He really wishes they'd make a splash trade in the quarterback market. And one might happen. I mean, I talked to Jed York at the owners' meetings. I've shared this before. His main point was the draft pick pool is replenishing for the 49ers. They didn't have valuable draft picks the last couple of years because they traded away those ones for Trey Lance. So that limits your ability to go out and trade for somebody at the deadline because you normally have to do it with draft capital. Last year, they spent the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, however many picks they spent to get Christian McCaffrey. This year, the picks replenish, including the 1. So they won't feel bad if they run into a player who's available, and we don't know who's available yet, that they have to spend a 2, a 3, and a 4 for. It would have to be a player that really moves the needle, though. They're not going to just go and pick up a slightly above average football player. The 49ers are in the business of trading for and signing star players. Evidence, Christian McCaffrey, Javon Hargrave. This team will draft and develop the players that it sees can fit those depth B-list roles, not necessarily depth, even starters, just the B-list roles, the roles not occupied by the A-listers. And then when the time comes and contracts must be decided, they'll re-sign guys who they believe have emerged and developed into A-listers. That's the track that Brandon Ayuk is on right now. But they won't re-sign guys like Charles Omenihu and Samson Ebukam. Congratulations to Ebukam. He was part of the Colts win over the Raiders today. And they won't do that because those guys would come at a premium cost for non-premium production. The 49ers try to only pay a premium cost for premium production, and that's how they stay under the salary cap. So when it comes to getting another cornerback, if there's a star corner that somehow becomes available before the trade deadline and the 49ers have enough capital to pay for him, that might be something that they consider. It just might. We can never say never. Last year, the perfect fit was Christian McCaffrey. He was that offensive weapon that they could slot into so many different positions. This year, will there be a perfect fit? If there is, they've got the cap space and they have the draft capital to pursue that player. If there's not, they can roll over the cap space to next season. They could do a little bit of both too. They can bring somebody in, they can roll over the cap space. It all depends on the circumstances, and the circumstances might change on a week-to-week basis. We certainly are not in a position yet to predict what's going to happen to the trade deadline because it takes buyers and sellers to make a trade work. When the 49ers restructured all those contracts and freed up that space, did you think something big was coming, or was it just housekeeping for the future? I thought both. I could think both. I could think the option of something big was coming while it was still housekeeping for the future. Because you're not going to use all 42 million right now. Even if something big is coming, you'll still have 30 to 35 million left over. In all likelihood, you're not going to be absorbing more than $5 to $10 million of somebody's contract this year, even if it's a huge contract, right? Just because of the way these things are structured. So I thought that the 49ers were just giving themselves options because they were willing to push some of this money back to carry it over into next year, and options to potentially do something this season. We don't know the cap next year, but I can show you my calculations. Let's get this open. This is the 49ers 2024 salary cap. Go for Broke is asking about this. He's saying they're 24. No, I have him at 40 million over, 39.18. If the cap is 256 million. This is just a projection though, because I only have them at like 39 or 40 players. I still have a lot of TBD spots where I'm just slotting in the minimum salary. So they're going to have to do moves next year too to get under the salary cap. But they feel that sustainability is possible, and it's going to have to continue through the draft. It's going to have to continue through some more restructures. It's going to have to continue through some tough decisions. So far, the 49ers are surfing that wave. You see a general bias against Brock in the media. I think the media, social media is just crazy. People just criticize the criticize. All I have to say about Brock Purdy is that it is his job to be as efficient as possible within the context of Kyle Shanahan's scheme. And these are the efficiency rankings in the NFL right now. Number one is a quarterback and play caller who's setting history in Tua Tagovailoa with Mike McDaniel right there. Number two is Brock Purdy. Mic drop for Brock Purdy. That's all he needs to keep doing. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl with Purdy, what kind of deal would they have to make with him? Well, they can't make a deal with Purdy this offseason because it's only his second year two. It would be year two under his belt. He's not eligible for a new deal until the following offseason. So this next offseason is going to be about Brandon Ayuk, maybe about Talanoa Hufanga. Those are the players on schedule to be eligible for new contracts. Brock Purdy wouldn't be up until the following offseason. I'm in a different studio right now. You might be a new viewer. This is the Frank Gore, Shane Lechler studio. Number 17 is still on the wall elsewhere. You'll see that a little bit later this week. You don't like the Gore jersey? I thought you'd like the Gore jersey. Go back to some team tiers here. Maybe then we look at some scores from around the league. There are the 49ers. Tier 1. Right next to the Bills, who aren't on their schedule this year. Good. Somebody likes the Gore jersey behind me. Philly. Where is Philly? I didn't even look for them earlier. The Eagles are right in the middle. Right there. You guys see the Eagles? 49ers over here. Eagles are right in the middle. Average efficiency offensively and defensively so far for Philadelphia. Hasn't been the hottest of starts for the Eagles. Now, the Eagles play tomorrow at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's 2-0, so it's going to be Philadelphia against Baker Mayfield tomorrow. And we also get to see the Rams tomorrow. So it's going to be an NFC West matchup, the Rams and the Bengals. Joe Burrow is questionable, though, has a calf injury. So that's a rematch of the Super Bowl from a couple seasons ago. They got that doubleheader on Monday Night Football. So still 4 teams left to play this weekend. I would say the 49ers have one of the harder schedules in the league. I don't know how it's the hardest schedule. The 49ers are, I mean, they're going to go on that stretch, and I could open it right here. Let's take a look at the 49ers schedule. But I mean, it's always fun to look at the 49ers schedule in the context of the season actually happening, because all of a sudden we can tell, oh, this is, here it is. Pop it open on the Athletic. We could gauge who's improving, who looks good, who looks bad. We can gauge what these teams look like within the actual flow of the season. So obviously 3 games under the 49ers belts. They play the Cardinals next. Arizona coming off of a big win against the Dallas Cowboys. Then the Cowboys, it's going to be the game of the week, Sunday Night Football. The Cowboys, however, will not be undefeated for that football game. Then a trip to face the Browns. The Browns, I mean, that's, to me, that's really tough, because Cleveland, when we looked at the team tiers, I mean, Cleveland was a football team that has the best defense in the league, or at least the most efficient defense in the league so far. And Deshaun Watson just played his best game. If he continues improving, this is going to be a really, really difficult road game, early body clock start for the 49ers in Cleveland. Minnesota, Kirk Cousins just doesn't have it. That's my takeaway. I mean, the Vikings in this game that they lost today against the Chargers, everything was within their grasp, and Cousins just wasn't managing the clock there at the end, was letting a bunch of time tick off. And then it was a deflected interception. I get it, but it never should have been a rush in the first place. It gave me flashbacks to when Cousins threw short of the sticks on 4th down against the Giants to end Minnesota's season last year. Against the Bengals, Bengals are an interesting team because they've struggled so mightily out of the gate. But, I mean, Burrow can turn it on at any point. You would think that Burrow, Jamar Chase, that defense, they were picked to be a favorite in the AFC for a reason. That could be a big game at Levi's. They just haven't started this season as hot as you'd expect them to. The Jaguars today had a tough loss against the Houston Texans. Congratulations to D'Amico Ryans on his first win. I had circled the Jacksonville game as a tough one for the 49ers for a while. Eastern time zone, cross country, all that good stuff. Up and coming team. Trevor Lawrence. The last time the 49ers were in Jacksonville, they had no trouble in 2021. But that was back when Urban Meyer, not Doug Peterson, was the head coach. We'll watch Tampa Bay closely tomorrow against the Philadelphia Eagles, because if Tampa Bay is able to give the Eagles a good battle, that's a home game in Tampa. Well, the 49ers, they get to host Tampa this year. That could be something that gets interesting. I don't think it will be. I think this is something the 49ers can win handily. But the league is an any given Sunday type of league, as we saw with the Cardinals and Cowboys today. Seattle, they're 2-1. Seattle beat Carolina today. 49ers' first game against the Seahawks is on Thanksgiving night. Here's the Eagles sandwich: Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks. So you've got Seattle, you got Philadelphia, and then you've got Seattle once again. Eagles, nothing else needs to be said. We'll watch them play Tampa Bay on Monday night. Again, Arizona, the Baltimore Ravens, who today really struggled offensively. Lamar Jackson thought he needed a holding call there on that drive in overtime. Didn't get it. Still seemed like he was struggling a lot with his short area accuracy. Ravens lost to the Colts. 49ers host them on Christmas Day. Commanders got blown out of the water by the Bills. I expect the 49ers to do something similar to the Commanders by the end of the season, but that's still a long way away. Finally, the Rams. If the 49ers are going to go 17-0, they're going to have to seal that against the Rams. So that's a look at the schedule, what's on tap for the 49ers. Do I think the 49ers can get the number? Of course, I think they can get the number one seed. I think all hands on deck, that is their goal, to get the number one seed, because not getting it last year really cost them. They lost two really tough games early that they regret, the Bears game and the Denver game, right? Both games against inferior teams that the 49ers really wish if they would have won one of them, they had the number one seed. They didn't get it. At least Denver had a decent defense last year. It's funny to say now on the day they gave up 70 to Miami. But last year, Denver had a top half defense. The Bears, they haven't been a top half team in any phase of the game for a really long time. 49ers lost that one too last year. Sunday is not the same without 49er football. Good news is next Sunday, you will have 49er football. I cannot answer the 49ers can realistically get in a trade on the trade market because, a question like this makes it sound like all the 49ers have to do is name a cornerback that might be available and that cornerback will be available. Availability is determined by the team selling the player on the trade market. And at this point, we don't know who's going to be available and who's not. There's nobody that's realistic right now because nobody's on the block right now, right? So give it a few weeks, then we'll see who's going to be tapping out on the season, who's going to be in sell mode, and maybe then we'll start to have a little bit of an idea. I think they'll begin to implement Jair Brown like they did Talanoa Hufanga back in 2021. Third safety sets. And I think injuries might naturally spur the integration of somebody like Jair Brown into the lineup. The 49ers have been lucky to avoid injuries for the most part so far. And they have to continue to be lucky, but no team is going to totally dodge them. That's where depth like Jair Brown might get its first shot. J49 got a lot done today not watching afternoon football. That's great. That's why I summarized it all for you in like a 5-minute video a little bit earlier today. I think people like that one. Yeah, and among the very few injuries the 49ers have had, they've taken advantage of the resulting opening, right? Ronnie Bell's a great example. Shane Springer says that today was a good reminder not to take Arizona for granted. The Dolphins just scored again. Got one more week to wait for more 49ers football. Vincent says maybe we should all be more hyped for the 49ers Dolphins game coming up. You mean the Super Bowl? That's the thing. But we saw the Dolphins. They had this jet speed offense last year too. Maybe it wasn't quite as developed as it is this season. But remember when they struck the 49ers early on their first drive with Trent Sherfield? Was that the first play? Might have been the first play. Untouched touchdown. Everybody was like, oh, God, the 49ers don't have the speed to keep up with these guys. That was the Purdy game. That was the game in which Brock Purdy emerged, and he actually outdueled Tua Tagovailoa in that game because Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt early on against the Miami Dolphins. So the 49ers defense is simply better than Miami's defense. That's a given right now. You look at team tiers, Miami's way over here with their offense, but the defense is right on the average marker on that y axis. You want to be to the right and up on this team tier chart. And the 49ers absolutely are. So balance is going to win you titles. Purely offense will get you scoring records in football games like we saw today for the Dolphins against the Denver Broncos. But there's a reason why the 49ers beat the Dolphins last season, and they beat them handily, and it's because the 49ers were a more balanced team than Miami. Been watching ever since preseason. Great job. Thank you, Nathaniel. What do the Niners have to worry about for next week? I think Arizona's got a solid run game. I think the 49ers have to watch that, and they have to watch Joshua Dobbs trying to run. It seems that Arizona's playing fast on the defensive end. They're playing aggressive on the defensive end. But the 49ers have so much talent. They're a lot better than Dallas offensively. I think that much is clear. It was the Dallas defense that really came out firing in weeks 1 and 2, and they got humbled a bit by the Cardinals today. But if the 49ers stay within themselves offensively, they've got so much talent that I don't think anybody can really stop them. You can maybe contain them, but the 49ers, if they play their game on offense, they're damn good. And that includes the Cowboys firing on defense. I think the 49ers can hold their own against Dallas. My buddy Harrison just texted me. The most notable part of the Steelers game tonight was their offense looked so dynamic, polar opposite of the performance they put on versus the 49ers. Shows the power of defense. Yeah, how about that? The Steelers look completely different tonight against the Raiders than they did against the 49ers. They show up against the 49ers, they're not able to get any yak. They go 3 and out on 5 straight possessions to open the game. Today, it seemed that they put up 20 plus with relative ease against the Raiders. They didn't go 3 and out, 5 straight possessions to start the game. There was yak. I saw George Pickens on a crosser. That was a big play. They were able to hit a deep touchdown. That kind of stuff wasn't open against the 49ers. That is why defense is so important. And that's why Miami, I wouldn't put them as a Super Bowl favorite, despite the fact they scored 70 points today. You've got to defend. You've got to be higher up on the y-axis on this team tier chart. You've got to be where the 49ers and Buffalo are. You have to be a team that does both offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. I don't think we have seen an offense like the Dolphins yet in terms of team speed with Waddle and Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert. I mean, it's just pure speed for Miami. Made some pizza for dinner. Grilled pizza. I have to do it tomorrow night too. Back-to-back pizza nights. Long story short. Yep. I mean, the Saints had the issue that they didn't have a top tier defense to pair with Drew Brees in that offense. Just one Super Bowl. The best example of a high powered Dolphins offense rolling through the regular season, looking good heading into the Super Bowl, but then getting shut down was that 1984 season. The Dolphins were the top offense in football in 84. The 49ers were the top defense in football in 84. In fact, the 49ers would have gone undefeated that season if not for a loss to the Steelers. Last second loss to Pittsburgh. It was Pittsburgh that derailed their undefeated season. But anyway, the 49ers beat the Dolphins 38-16 in the Super Bowl at Stanford Stadium. You like that Frank Gore aura? I love it. Good. So I don't know about this. I thought the NFC West, people originally predicted it to be extremely competitive at the top between the Seahawks and the 49ers. I never really bought into that. I thought the 49ers were better than the Seahawks. from the jump. I didn't get the Seahawks hype, but I did think they would like challenge the 49ers, right? I favored the 49ers. I thought the Seahawks would be challengers. I think ever since this season has started, the 49ers have looked significantly better than Seattle, to the point where I don't see Seattle challenging them really at all if the 49ers stay healthy. Where I do think it's more competitive is teams 2 through 4. I think the Rams, obviously, they've already puffed their chests out at the Seahawks, and we just saw Arizona go and beat Dallas. So let's see how Arizona does against the 49ers. So it might be more competitive 1 through 4, but I think the 49ers' grip on number 1 in the West is stronger than it's ever been. I think Arizona might be feistier than we think. I don't think that Dallas is all that. And I never said that Dallas was all that. I've always said that Dallas was a team that is great when everything is lined up for them because they gamble a lot on the back end. They obviously gamble a lot on the front end with Micah Parsons and a ferocious pass rush. It's great when you're ahead and the other team is throwing, and it could look really, really damn good when you're forcing all those takeaways. But if another team is able to run down your throat, and Dallas is vulnerable to that, and control game flow, and stay ahead to where you're on your heels as a defense, you're not going to look as good. And I think the Cowboys, the delta between looking good and looking bad is much bigger than it is for essentially than any other team, because Dallas relies so much on playing on their toes defensively. So that's the answer to your question. I just think that Dallas is who we thought they were. And that's a team that's going to lose games from time to time. Still a good team, but not the best team in all of football. I mean, Dallas is not just big. The 49ers are a big market too. San Francisco is a massive media market, but Dallas has Jerry. You got to give Jerry Jones credit. He built up America's team. He turned the Cowboys into the biggest brand in football. The national media, it's profitable for them to cover Dallas very intensely, and that's why the Cowboys do get the hype that they get. And the 49ers aren't a small brand either. I think they do a good job promoting their brand too. It's just that Dallas is really the biggest kid on the block when it comes to media hype. Commentators are always prisoners of the moment. Chiefs, Eagles, Bills. I think you're saying AFC teams like the Eagles. The Eagles are actually in the NFC, but you mean the Chiefs and the Bills. I mean, Bills look pretty damn good today, beating Washington 37-3. Chiefs look damn good today. I mean, just kicking the Bears' ass all down the field. The Eagles play Tampa Bay tomorrow, so we'll see about them in the NFC. I think it will all sort out the way that it will sort out. It's one of those things we cannot look at this on a week by week basis and be like, oh, these guys fell off. This is looking horrible. We can look at it with the sample that we have, which is 3 weeks now, 4 weeks next week, 5 weeks after that. And I think the cream will rise to the top. The 49ers are already starting to really rise here after 3 games, right? All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. I think this is a good time to call it quits. A little bit over an hour, getting a little bit late on the West Coast. Everybody like the video, subscribe to the channel. One more look at the team tiers. There you go. And the Athletic right now is $1 a month. So if you want to go to my landing page on the Athletic and sign up through any of these articles, it would be much appreciated. I'll share this info, the landing page, in the chat section right now. There's David Lombardi on The Athletic. $1 a month for any of this stuff, including the Shanahan Lynch extensions, 5-man fronts, Nick Bosa, salary cap stuff, Brock Purdy content. It's all there for you, posted as a comment right now. So go ahead and check it out. Theathletic.com/author/David Lombardi with a little dash. And be on your way for another great week. Week 4 for the 49ers. Good night, everybody. We will talk to you very soon.